This program contains graphic material, including offensive language. Viewer discretion is advised.
Stood up to, whole gangs before. I'm not afraid to lose my life.
Their code demands not only secrecy, but violence.
Most likely, someone's gonna come by and shoot at you.
Fearing reprisals, the members of one of the country's most secretive gangs won't show their faces on camera.
You recruit the people that are the most willing to fight, to shoot, to kill, to steal.
They call themselves MOD, Menace of Destruction.
MOD is always on top. We're never gonna drop.
You're always out there looking to shoot somebody, looking to beat somebody up.
And the Twin Cities are feeling their wrath.
Us Asians, we don't go one-on-one. You mess with one of us, you're messing with all of us.
No one is safe as they terrorize Minneapolis and St. Paul. Even law enforcement.
He turns around and starts shooting. Recall hitting the ground.
That pretty much got everybody all pissed off.
Minnesota's Twin Cities, Minneapolis and St. Paul, are divided by the Mississippi River. Some 3 million people call the metropolitan area home. It's a cold-weather paradise where hockey, curling, and ice fishing are the local pastimes. In the past 20 years, thousands of Southeast Asians have immigrated to the region.
They moved here because of the quality of life. I mean, you have good education, you have affordable housing, you have many amenities here.
The Hmong people, native to China, make up the largest portion of this community.
Now here in Minnesota, we have about 60,000 Hmong. In fact, we have the largest urbanized Hmong population in the United States.
A small number of these Hmong lead secret, ultra-violent lives.
We destroy everything in our path.
There are some 50 documented Hmong gangs in the Twin Cities area alone. Of those, one strikes the most fear. MOD, Menace of Destruction.
The MOD have got to be one of our most active gangs and most violent gangs.
No cop is more familiar with MOD than Chris Tayson, a 15-year police veteran and investigator with Minnesota law enforcement. He is an expert on their ultra-secret activities.
MODs, in particular, are involved in the trafficking of methamphetamine, the auto thefts, the armed robberies, the attempted murders.
Tayson's also battled to crack their secretive culture face to face. February 12, 2007. Investigator Tayson and his partner, Sergeant Kevin Navarra, were on patrol in downtown St. Paul. They spotted a local MOD fugitive, 25-year-old Mitchell Mua, in his car.
Mitchell drives by and I lock eyes with him. We both kind of looked at each other and the chase was on.
Mua was wanted for multiple charges, including kidnapping, robbery, assault, weapons, and drug possession.
Mitchell is one of my good homies. He, most respected, one of the hardest guys I know.
Tayson and Navarra chased Mua's car down an alley and barricaded him. But Mua was not about to stop.
He ended up going around my vehicle and then the real chase was on.
Mua raced down the streets of St. Paul, fleeing a pack of squad cars.
Next thing we hear is shots are being fired out the window of Mitchell Mua's car.
The cops shot back, and a firefight ensued on the busy city streets. Mua lost control of his car and crashed. Then, true to the secret nature of MOD and not wanting to be taken alive, he did the unthinkable.
Mitchell ended up taking his own life. He shot himself in the head.
It's MODs like Mua who have turned the streets of St. Paul and Minneapolis into hostile territory.
If you see one, just don't intimidate them. Don't look them in the eye. You know, you're not a gang member, and you look at them in the eye, and they'll think you're dogging them, and then they'll do something to you. So it's better off to just pass on by.
2 is a former MOD member who asked to have his identity concealed because he fears retaliation.
You have to be the toughest person in the world to be an MOD.
MOD secrecy makes them a close-knit society, closer even than blood.
It's like a brotherhood. It's like a family thing. It's different from their own families because the whole family, already hates you already because you're a gangster.
They don't care about anything except their gang. The only thing that matters to them is that they're MOD, Menace of Destruction.
Sergeant Richard Straka, a 15-year veteran with the St. Paul Police Department, is familiar with the inner workings of this highly secretive gang.
The gangs become their family. Their only goal is to protect themselves and their friends.
This promise of family and protection was a magnet to Ricky, who also asked to have his identity concealed. He grew up on the east side of St. Paul.
A lot of stuff goes down there. You have both parents working, nobody's really there to watch you.
At an early age, Ricky saw his friends and cousins clicking up. He wanted in.
It's thrill seeking. What can the ultimate thrill be for us? It's fighting and shooting.
The thrill-seeking turned to terror when Ricky and his homies started fighting other gangs.
We went in there thinking that we were gonna gain respect from duking it out. It's a never-ending cycle. It's a cycle of violence.
Every single gangsters or every single gang that comes our way, we would stop them. We would actually eliminate them.
So they have to do violent acts back to them, to the rival gangs, to show that they're on top, that they're not to be messed with.
MOD's reach goes far beyond Minnesota to places like California, Colorado, and North Carolina. The Twin Cities are the gang's true national headquarters and base of operations. The area draws members from all over the country.
You could have, say, 50 MODs in St. Paul, Minneapolis area, but that number might swell to 150 or 200 because the MODs from other cities and states come here.
It's nothing for a 14-year-old MOD to do a shooting in Sacramento, California, and find himself here in Minnesota living with MODs.
Tayson had fought this type of fugitive before. February 3rd, 2005. Investigator Tayson, along with Sergeant Navarra, got a call to Columbia Heights, a suburb north of Minneapolis.
Columbia Heights just had a pool hall shooting, and they asked us for our assistance.
9 members of MOD had been shooting pool when a fight broke out, with some young Tibetans at a nearby table. The MODs had mistaken them for a rival gang.
A fight became a shooting. Then we fought them. There was a lot of them.
What started with fists escalated to bottles, cue sticks, and pool balls, until the MODs raised the stakes. Unarmed and outmatched, the Tibetans fled the pool hall. The MODs showed no mercy.
We went to the cars and grabbed our guns and shoot them down.
After the shooting stopped, the 6 Tibetans lay bleeding on the streets.
It's a classic case of the Tibetans bringing a knife to a gunfight They didn't realize what they're going up against.
Officer Tayson began an all-out investigation. In just days, it was revealed that a violent MOD fugitive was behind the pool hall shooting. The gangster's name was Yatao He, and he would soon unleash a reign of terror never before seen in the Twin Cities.
That's one of the biggest shootings we did. That's when everybody knew us.
The United States has the largest population of Hmong people outside of Asia, numbering some 180,000. Roughly half have settled in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis-St. Paul. This includes one of the most deadly gangs in the Midwest, the secretive Menace of Destruction, or MOD.
They do something to you, you do some worse to back to let them know that you don't f with us.
The roots of the Hmong go back nearly 3,000 years to China, their original home.
The Hmong people are a very peaceful people. We live way up in the mountains, just, grow our crops and just want to be left alone.
This calm depiction contrasts with the Hmong's history, much of which has been spent in conflict. In the 18th century, civil wars drove many out of China and into Southeast Asian countries like Vietnam and Laos. Those who stayed in China suffered during World War II. First under the oppressive reign of the Japanese, and then later under the new communist regime of Mao Zedong. The 1950s and 60s brought new conflicts as American forces moved into Southeast Asia. The goal was to stem the tide of rising communism in the region. The U.S. recruited the Hmong to help fight the communists.
We were trained by the CIA, and so if you give us M16, we'll do a good job for you.
For almost 15 years, Hmong forces fought in favor of U.S. interests in Laos, battling the North Vietnamese and Viet Cong in a country that was officially neutral. The struggle came to be known as the Secret War.
Hmong involvement in the Vietnam conflict was, first of all, to rescue American pilots who were shot down over the country of Laos. The Hmong were also recruited to engage the North Vietnamese army.
In 1975, the U.S. pulled out of the region, leaving the Hmong at the mercy of their communist enemies, but offering asylum to those lucky enough to make it to the U.S. Later that same year, the U.S. evacuated thousands of their Hmong allies. Over the next 2 decades, tens of thousands of Hmong were resettled in the U.S. thanks to a government sponsorship program. The Twin Cities, headquarters of several relief agencies, also became a popular Hmong destination. Like other immigrant groups, the Hmong faced great difficulties in their new land. Ex-gangbanger Tommy asked to have his identity concealed. The child of Hmong refugees, Tommy had trouble fitting in with his classmates in school.
As we went to junior high school, there was like a lot of racism, a lot of white kids picking on a lot of Asian kids. A lot of them didn't really speak English.
We've been stereotyped to be the geeky people with a big accent and buck teeth. And after a while, you get tired of it, and you start to learn that in order to get anywhere, you gotta stand up for yourself.
It didn't take long for the Hmong youth to become angry and full of despair.
There's no hope at an early age. It drives into criminal activity, and it's a sad situation.
Just kind of get tired of people picking on you. We wanted people to see that we can hold our own.
In 1988, Tommy, then a 7th grader, recruited some friends and formed his own gang.
We were helping people out, all the kids in school. And when somebody picks on them, and they come to us, and we're like, all right, yeah, we help you out. And we go out and, We beat up the other guys.
The new gang would become the most powerful in the Twin Cities. They called themselves the White Tigers.
In our culture, the tiger is one of the most feared things, of all creatures, the white tigers. We're here to protect our own.
In addition, dozens of other Hmong gangs formed. The goal of these new gangs, however, soon turned from protection to criminal enterprise. Their target, other Hmong people.
Hmong elders, a lot of their cash and valuables are kept at home, hidden in closets or what have you. So a lot of the gangsters, they know this. So they know where to go when they want a quick hit.
The gangsters also knew when to strike.
They know that some of the temporary employment agencies used to pay cash every day on Thursday. So every day on Thursday we had armed robberies going on.
These new bangers were small, secretive, and extremely ruthless.
They're 5'4", 5'5" tall. People think, they're not going to be very violent, and that's not the truth. If anything, I think they're more violent because of that. They're younger. They don't think about the consequences of what they're doing.
They think that we're just a little small gang and can do nothing. But after a few shootings, we showed them who we really are.
They were missing just one thing: firepower.
A couple of my friends got into it with the skinheads. He worked two of them with the nunchuck. They came back with the 22 shooting at him. He was like, oh man, we need some guns. And one of my guys was like, hey man, we gotta hit a gun store, man. So we went through the yellow pages and it said Bill's Gun Shop, over 10,000 guns. Wow, that's a lot of guns.
Tommy and his homies cased the store for a week, noting when the police patrolled the area.
And we knew right around like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock there was nobody coming through there. So we hit the store.
Their break-in was bold and terrifying, and became the gang's calling card.
They would steal a car and they would drive it through the front of a gun store, and then they would go inside the gun store.
Once inside, the gangsters worked with extreme precision and focus.
There'd be a group that would start breaking the glass out of the gun cases, and the next group would follow in behind with duffel bags or pillowcases and scoop up all the handguns.
They walked away with an impressive arsenal of weapons.
It was shotguns and rifles right on the side of the window. So we just grabbed the guns.
They'd be in and out of that gun store in a minute and a half.
Smash and grab. A lot of people are familiar with that technique, I'm pretty sure.
The White Tigers were armed and dangerous. Their violence spread to anyone who got in their way, even at family arcades like this one. But the gang was planning a bigger surprise. In the early 1990s, the Hmong community continued to grow in the Twin Cities. They began to organize an annual July 4th soccer festival, which became a big cultural event. While the rest of the community viewed the festival as a celebration, the gangs used it to settle conflicts with one another.
It's, the 1 or 2 times out of the year that you can be sure to find your enemies. So people use that as a way of getting to people they want to get to.
In 1991, the White Tigers planned a brutal surprise for a rival Asian gang at the soccer festival.
We came with, 3 duffel bags full of guns. But we didn't bring them in, we had the girls bring them in.
When the rival gang showed up, Tommy and his fellow White Tigers made their move.
I whistled for the girls to come by, and they came by with the bags. As soon as they unzipped those bags, everybody's just grabbed a gun out of there.
In seconds, the playing field became a battleground.
I just unloaded on them. I don't even know if I hit them from where everybody says, I hit them.
Though no one was killed, the shooting terrified the Twin Cities and put the White Tigers on the map. A rival Hmong gang was about to make its mark, however. 2,000 miles away, near the farmlands of Northern California, Menace of Destruction, or MOD, was taking shape. MOD expanded throughout the early 90s, forming cells in cities with a large Hmong presence throughout Wisconsin, Colorado, and North Carolina. By the middle of the decade, as the Hmong population migrated to the Twin Cities, so did MOD. They also began recruiting school kids, like two.
One of the homies was at the school that I was at. He feared that, I was pretty tough, and that's how he got to MOD.
For the first time, the White Tigers had serious competition for supremacy. New MOD gangsters were going after them.
We after school, or even, before school starts, we'd catch them walking to school or getting off the bus, and then we'll beat them down.
It didn't take long for the White Tigers to fall apart. Most of their members were either locked up in other gangs or dead. The MODs, on the other hand, were growing like wildfire, with out-of-state recruits flocking to build up its membership. One of the most notorious of those gangsters was Yatao Her, a high-profile fugitive from the West Coast. Yatao was 21 years old, with a longer rap sheet than many career criminals. December 2004, California. Yatao Her was doing time for assault with a deadly weapon when he escaped from a work release program.
One of the hardest guys I know, hard at heart, came up here, to see the homies in Minnesota.
Along with secrecy, one of the cornerstones of the MOD code is the concept of helping fellow members. A wanted man in California, Yatao fled to Minnesota, where he knew he'd be safe. Yatao Her would use the lessons he learned gangbanging in Fresno to rise to the top of the MODs in the Twin Cities. His presence would incite the gang to never-before-seen levels of violence.
These guys are MODs. These guys don't particularly go after anybody for no reason.
Menace of Destruction, or MOD. It's a name that isn't easy to live up to. The brutal Hmong gang that uses it stretches from its Northern California roots to its most powerful chapter in Minnesota's Twin Cities.
They're not overly fearful of getting caught. These guys who are shooting cops and innocent people, it's a notch on their belt.
We're very violent. We just take whatever we can. If you want to represent the name MOD, you have to be strong. You can't be a
This nationwide gang also operates under a cloak of secrecy, hiding members on the run from police around the country.
If I wanted to go hide from, because I was wanted from doing criminal activity, I would just call them straight up, go straight down there and meet up with the homies, and they'll hide me.
We see our gangsters getting ID'd in Wisconsin and California as much as we see theirs.
MOD's secrecy is unusual. Unlike most other gangs who like to show off in the hood, this one prefers to lay low.
It's dangerous. If they sit on a specific street corner or a specific park all the time, the rival gang members are going to know they don't want to be a target.
MOD specializes in the art of surprise as a way to keep their enemies off balance.
So we stay at our own houses, behind closed doors. And then when it's time to go out, we go out.
You have to be smart about it. You can't just go out in a drunken rage and, kill people.
What now, fool?
Their low profile means members avoid graffiti. The lack of tagging makes it tough for law enforcement to track their turf.
Don't see a lot of the graffiti. It's not like you see in the black gangs and Hispanic gangs where they're marking up walls of apartment buildings.
They're not claiming that area for their self. They're so spread out and living in so many different areas that there's no reason for it.
this tight-knit Hmong community means gang members all know one another. This means that getting inked, which is required in some gangs, is optional for MOD.
If you want that MOD tattoo on your body, go ahead. If you don't want to, that's fine, because we know you're a member already. It doesn't really matter if you have a tattoo or not.
Most do get tats to show their gang pride.
You're going to see the MOD. You're going to see tattoos that might just say Menace. You'll see them on their back, chest, arms, necks.
The most common MOD tat is the code 301. This code becomes clear when gangsters throw down their MOD hand sign.
That 3, it turns into an M, and then the O is the 0 is the letter O, and then if you loop that last one, it looks like a D.
The gang's colors vary from state to state.
Minnesota, we're blue. In Wisconsin, it's red. California is red. Colorado's gray. North Carolina's blue and red. So color don't really matter to us as long as we hold the name MOD.
MOD has virtually no hierarchy, but each set has a leader in charge.
There is no structure. There's a shot caller. We call a shot that when it comes to like drive-bys or like shooting someone down. Other than that, everybody's free to do their own thing.
It's kind of majority rules. You know, it's our gang, not just my gang, not just your gang. We've learned to put our heads together and come up with, better ideas.
The shot callers tend to be older gang members, a reflection of the Hmong culture's reverence for the wisdom of age.
They probably committed more crimes. They've gotten a little bit wiser in how they're doing their crimes, and they can pass it on to the younger kids on what to do and what not to do and how not to get caught.
It's like the older you are, the longer you are in the gang, the more respect you get. So it's kind of like rank.
I was one of the shot callers, because what I said makes sense to people.
Joining the gang requires that members prove they're down for the cause.
We test you. We take you to rounds, like we do drive-bys, see if you have the heart to hold a gun and actually shoot a gun. And you have to be tough, man, to be MOD.
The recruits also have to be patient if they want to be members.
A person would have to hang around with MOD for like a good 9 months to a year before we jump them in.
Typically that involves 2, 3, 4 guys beating you up for 20 or 30 seconds.
The brutal process comes with a reward.
Show no love. After the initiation, and then you show love.
Some members don't have to endure the jump-in. The MODs have an easier path to initiation, if you have the right connections.
They call it getting blessed in. That would just be, you're my brother, your brother's, I'm cool, your brother's cool, we're just gonna let him into the gang.
Once a member is in, there are 3 simple rules he must follow.
Don't ever turn your back on a homie. Don't ever leave your homie behind. You snitch, you die. You snitch, you die. That's how it is.
The consequences for breaking the first 2 rules are severe, but not deadly.
You will get violated. Like good minute or 2.
Members who have been violated lose the respect of the gang. It can take months or even years to rebuild.
They will never count on me anymore. You have to work your way back up again. It's all about your rep, too.
Another unique aspect of the MODs is that those who want to leave the gang can get walked out. There are strict conditions for this exception.
You go and get married, and you walk free. If you want to turn your life around, as long as you still remember us, we still remember you. We'll let you go.
Not everyone gets a free pass, especially if a gangbanger flip-flops.
If you're just gonna leave and go join another gang, you'll get violated.
In his 15 years in Minnesota law enforcement, Chris Tayson has learned all about MOD's rituals. He found out firsthand just how lethal their actions could be when he came face to face with one of MOD's most notorious and desperate fugitives, Yatauher.
This guy that kind of walked that way and just turned around and started shooting.
We were so kind of surprised they would shot at the cop, like, you know, point blank.
Minneapolis, 2005. Investigators were on a mission to bring in a young, ruthless member of the Hmong gang, Menace of Destruction, or MOD. Yatauher was a fugitive from California, hiding out in the Twin Cities. Yatau was armed and extremely dangerous.
We had the information that Yatauher was in town. We knew who we were looking for, these MODs, but they had individuals that were hiding them.
Yatauher quickly became a leader in the Twin Cities, making the gang much more violent. The gang strike force knew if they could apprehend him, they might be able to end MOD's dominance of the area. Chris Tayson, a veteran with the gang strike force, was trying to break the gang's code of silence and take Yatau off the streets.
I showed this lady a picture of Yatauher, and she says, yeah, he's been in my house. Not only that, he's got guns.
The investigator was hot on Yatau's trail. But before he could get to him, Yatau went on a terrifying crime spree. February 3rd, 2005. Police got the call to a pool hall north of Minneapolis. An MOD shooting had left 2 unarmed Tibetan men dead and 4 wounded.
You know, they want to rumble at a bar. We did that.
The police quickly set up roadblocks and stopped cars carrying 6 MOD suspects with several weapons.
They had two vehicles stopped, literally, you know, around the block.
3 guns were recovered at the scene. Then Tayson and his partner, Kevin Navarra, realized that some of their suspects were missing.
We were able to ascertain that there was another vehicle involved that had gotten away.
The missing vehicle was Yatauher's, the gangster they were desperate to track down.
We had pictures, and we knew what we were looking for. It was kind of like chasing a ghost.
Yatau, now on the run again, fled to Eau Claire, Wisconsin, about 100 miles east of the Twin Cities.
He went to see the homies in Eau Claire, because, you know, we have homies in Eau Claire too.
Yatauher was desperate to get back to California, but he needed money. February 9th, 2005. Just 6 days after the pool hall slaying, Yatau robbed a mini-mart. After taking $50, he shot the female clerk 3 times.
He shot the clerk. But that's how it is when you're a gangster. You move from state to state.
Yatau left the clerk for dead and headed back to the Twin Cities. The clerk survived, but Yatau's spree wasn't finished. 5 days later, Valentine's Day, 2005. During the investigation, Tayson got a tip that Yatauher was hiding out in a hotel room in a nearby suburb. Expecting a firefight, Tayson called in the SWAT team.
They surround the hotel. SWAT comes in there and I was like, man.
Rounds of gas were fired, but the cops were too late. The fugitive had been tipped off.
By the time we got everybody into place and had a SWAT team hit the room, we had missed them by minutes.
There was evidence that these guys were staying there. You know, they were cutting their hair, altering their appearance.
Police frustration was growing, and the manhunt intensified. Then, another tip. Yatauher's car was seen in St. Paul at the Roosevelt housing projects. On February 23rd, 2005, Investigator Tayson and a colleague headed to the projects.
It's February in Minnesota, and I remember as we drive by, I see three of these Hmong guys, parkas on, knit hats, and walking towards the area.
As the police got closer, the trio kept changing directions. Suspicious, Tayson got out of his car and recognized Yatao Her.
I get out on our passenger side. One of them kind of walks away, and the other two start walking in a different direction. And I'm telling them, I say, hey, police, we want to talk to you too.
The suspects didn't hesitate.
This guy kind of just turned around and started shooting.
The shooter was one of Yatao's homies, named Z-Lore.
They was trying to hunt him down. He was running from the police, He gotta shoot the cop and get away. So, I guess that's what he did.
Tayson was hit in the stomach and dropped immediately.
I don't recall actually hitting the ground. Next thing I know, I'm sitting on my butt, shooting back at this guy.
Tayson fired 13 shots at the fleeing suspects before he collapsed in a pool of his own blood. Yatao Her, Z-Lore, and the third MOD, named Phong Vang, took off.
After Chris was shot, these three individuals started running, and two of them had handguns.
The news of Tayson's shooting and the uncertainty of his survival quickly spread throughout the Twin Cities. Sergeant Kevin Navarro was enjoying a day off when he turned on his cell phone.
I remember to this day 27 phone messages, which I'm used to 5 or 6.
Navarro sped to the scene, one of hundreds of officers looking for the gunman. The cops finally collared the shooter, Z-Lore, and the third suspect, Phong Vang. Then, an officer spotted Yatao Her.
They saw Yatao Her running, and, still had a gun in his hand.
The officer pinned Yatao Her against a building with his squad car. Finally, MOD's biggest menace, Yatao Her, was in custody. Yatao was charged with multiple crimes, including attempted murder and accessory to murder.
Yatao Her was convicted. I believe he pled guilty in Eau Claire. He also pled guilty in Columbia Heights.
Her was sentenced to a total of 42 years. Z-Lore pled guilty to shooting Investigator Tayson and was sentenced to 36.5 years for accessory to second-degree murder with the pool hall shooting. He received 36.5 years. Phong Vang and 6 other MODs were sentenced to 358.5 years for the pool hall shootings.
We got some good prison time out of these guys.
These sentences took some of the most violent MOD gangbangers off the streets.
Those are my homies. It's kind of sad because, we need them out here. They're the toughest ones.
Yatao Her's crime spree took the MODs down. But they were not finished. The gang was already figuring out what its next move would be.
Know for sure you're gonna die somehow representing the gang. So why fear it?
St. Paul, Minnesota. With Yatao Her and the rest of the leadership of Menace of Destruction, or MOD, behind bars, the gang is weakened, but still in the game.
If we go to a rival gang right now, we say we're MOD, they'll be scared of us. Even though they say they're not, but they really are.
Many assume that due to their ultra-secretive nature, MOD is simply in hiding before their ultimate re-emergence.
They're not sure what we're up to. As far as MOD, because we've been quiet for a while. Hopefully they don't know. It's just between you and me.
Sometimes they're violent. Sometimes you don't hear from them for a couple years, and part of that is because some of their hardcore members are locked up.
with its most violent gangsters either incarcerated or dead, MOD is changing its strategy.
Back then we didn't have a plan. We just go and did our thing and then we got out. But now we have a plan. We're more organized now than we ever was before.
Some of the gang members who aren't gangbanging as heavy now, they're out there selling meth and ecstasy to make money. But they're not out there being thugs right now. They're not out there doing shootings.
According to two, it's just a matter of time before the violence resumes.
Well, no matter what, there will be other gangs. But we will try, we won't try, but we will maintain our ground and make sure that we will eliminate everybody else.
Menace of Destruction is plotting its comeback and using technology to do it.
Some of these gangs have unbelievable websites talking about the violence that they do, showing guns, showing themselves on there.
Even cell phones make it simpler for the gang to operate.
It's a lot easier now if you're driving by and you see some rival gang members to get on your cell phone and call up and get 10 or 15 gang members to come over there to do something.
While younger gangsters use new tactics, some older ones are calling it quits.
I got locked up in '99. When I came out of prison, I already told myself, I told everybody else, yo, I'm too old for this stuff.
Tommy, who founded one of the Twin Cities' first Hmong gangs, the White Tigers, now has a family and a regular job.
I make enough to survive. I just bought myself a house while I was struggling trying to make it. I go out, gave a few speeches on gang prevention with kids and stuff.
Tommy still feels the pull from the gang.
You felt that power. Once you feel that power, then you just can't let go.
It's the power that makes Ricky fearful of the future.
People shoot before they talk nowadays, and it's these little kids that you really got to worry about.
Letting go of MOD hasn't been any easier for Two, who says he left the gang several years ago. Having a child changed everything.
When my kid was born, that's when I said, no more. And that's when I realized that, I'm done.
Two says the gang walked him out peacefully for all his years of service. While he's no longer an active MOD, he admits the life keeps its grip on him.
I still have the urge to do something, Sometimes when I see my enemies, I still throw my gang sign out. But to do something, I'm too old for that. I'm a man now.
It's an urge Twin City authorities say is common.
I've seen guys get married and have children and tell me, I'm married now, Kevin, I'm not in the gang anymore. But as soon as their parents' places hit up on a drive-by shooting because brother's in a gang, he jumps back in for the retaliation part of it. So it's always there.
Investigator Chris Tayson was lucky. The bullet missed his vital organs by a fraction of an inch. Tayson recovered quickly. The mild-mannered family man found himself in a new role. Hero.
I live in a small town, so it's one of those things, like I say, thrust into the limelight. I'm not the one to talk about it, so.
In 2006, he received the Medal of Valor. He was also named Minnesota's Policeman of the Year. Today, Investigator Tayson is back on the streets, hunting down gangbangers.
So it's always a war. If we see them, we're going to rumble, no matter what. We're not going to let them slip by at all. If you let them slide once, you're going to let them slide 10 times.
It's just a matter of time before the menace is back.
We're accumulating money. We are gathering more